So we're going to grab an interview with one of the RGMMC officials, and we got Paul Klaassen, Chief Scrutineer. Does that make you public enemy number one, Paul?
Normally does.
But welcome, good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time on what's probably been a very busy day here today. You're obviously Chief Scrutineer for RGMMC. What was your first involvement in motor racing in any shape or form?
Long time ago now, I'm afraid. It's, believe it or not, I started with my karting career back in 1961.
Wow, driving presumably?
Yeah, not racing, but as a bit of a hobby when I was 7 years old. And I had my first competition licence back in 1964. And progressed all the way through racing at international level on gearbox racing on car circuits as well.
Okay.
Mainly doing Silverstone, places like Donington and Mallory Park. And then in 1989, or just before 1989, I decided to call racing a day, having missed out on becoming British champion as well in the past, and took up doing scrutineering. So I've progressed from there all the way through, from doing basically club racing all the way through to doing national championships in the UK, international meetings on the CIK side, and obviously with Roland at RGMMC.
Wow, so that's quite a unique jump. You get a lot of people that knock the driving on the head, then go on to, say, mechanicking or even team ownership, as we've been speaking to some, but to go into the scrutineer, what appealed to you to go that route then?
Poacher gamekeeper, as it was always known.
Okay.
You know, because over the years, all that when I was racing myself, I also did engine building, tuning, all my own work on that side of it. I was producing engines in front of the factory engines as well, before they even did them.
Wow.
To the same extent. And because I'd always done that side of it, it was suggested by another scrutineer, why don't you take up scrutineering? And that's really what I did.
Presumably, and that's really helped with you to do the scrutiny and to be involved in like the engine build and everything else, because it means you've got a real under the bonnet understanding of the karts. The racing gives you an understanding of what the drivers might want to do or the teams might want to do with those karts to improve it. What's unfair, what's fair, you must have therefore really good insight.
It helps a little bit, yes, because it's like they make excuses up and they'll say to you, oh, this was an accident, and you go, well, I did that 20 years ago, so you know what they do, what they're talking about and where the differences are and what the differences make when it comes to racing as well.
How much has it changed over the years?
Oh, a hell of a lot. A lot of it is down to money always. I think that's the biggest problem. And because people want to put a lot of money into it, it's become more professional. Going back 20 years ago, there wasn't the money. There was one or two people with money, but it was more on the friendly side, more sportsmanship and everything. As the money's progressed into it, now it's win at any cost, and if you're not winning, the teams aren't doing the job properly, so then you get this nasty feeling that's always out there, and it's a bit of a shame really, because you know, you got some really good kids out there and the parents want them to win, and that's understandable when they're throwing a lot of money at it. But at the end of the day, if there's a lot of drivers out there and only one person can win, so you have to take that.
Has that made you more passionate about what you do because you have to be there? We'd be in trouble if there wasn't you there controlling that element.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been my way of looking at things, is the fact that you want to make it a level playing field for everybody. We know that it's an impossibility to make it 100% level, because there's always going to be, you know, there's 28, 30 people on the circuit, you can only check so many at a time. So unfortunately, there's going to be the odd time where somebody will do something. 9 times out of 10 it's a genuine mistake. That's all you can have a look at it on. But there's always going to be that one in so many that will try it on. That's the problem.
And are you able to tell the difference secretly in your own mind? You can tell whether it's an accident or deliberate?
Yeah, I think you normally can. You have that feeling about it, and you have to work on that instinct sometimes.
Overhearing some of the conversations that have happened in the past is that we have a lot of very big teams here, but we've still not quite dad and vans anymore, unfortunately, but there is still the smaller teams. And whilst they're sort of trying to say, oh, you know, give us some leeway, you strictly, no, the rules are the rules.
Rules are always going to be the rules for us to obey. It's not for us to actually, or from scrutineering, to make any decisions. We're like the policeman. We see something, we have to report it then, and it's the stewards that make the decisions. People seem to think that it's the scrutineers. I know it sounds as if we're passing the buck a little bit. We are, but we do not make those. We only impose what the rules say, implement that, and once we've implemented it, we pass that to the stewards, and they will make the decision. And if they think that we've made a mistake, obviously they'll speak to us about it.
Yeah, so yours is literally to the book, and theirs is then interpretation?
It's always the competitors that have the interpretations.
So
they interpret it in their favour always.
Obviously, but does that mean the stewards is literally by the book, or do
they have to go by the book always? But
okay.
There is always a difference, and you have to speak to the stewards really on that one, because if somebody goes out deliberately cheating, they have to treat it different to when somebody makes a silly mistake.
Yeah.
Underweight, for argument's sake, is a silly mistake. But somebody that's put the wrong petrol in because they've tried to put something in it that's wrong, that's a different ball game.
Yeah, absolutely. Have the rules, either the number of rules increased or the strength of the rules increased over the years as well?
Yes, the rules have increased in what's there, and that has to be because what happens is if you're not careful, you get too many grey areas. So the only reason rule books increase, and especially with features and everything, is to stop the grey areas appearing, because there's nothing worse than saying you know in your heart that there's something wrong with something, but you can't prove it.
Yeah.
So then you have to you interpret it, and that doesn't go down very well. So then you have to say no, this is the rule. So you put the rule in place to make sure that the competitors know where they stand, and that they're doing it correctly as well.
Are there times when it's really difficult when you get the upset team, upset drivers, upset parents, whatever it might be, and you've got to sit there and be the ogre, quite frankly, isn't it, as far as they're going to see? Mm-hmm. Does that get hard?
Very hard. But you have to show a little bit of compassion as well to the competitor, to the especially with the driver, especially with the juniors. You try and explain to them that that it's not what we want to be doing, but unfortunately we have to do it, because if we don't do it, and somebody was to protest if we don't do it, they're going to win the protest anyway. So you have no choice but to actually report it as such.
Yeah.
But you have to take the kind-hearted approach and try and explain to them the reasons why and everything, to try and make them a little bit happier. Never make them happy.
No, exactly. And I've heard you do it, and you do really well job at really softening as much as you can and explaining absolutely everything. But yeah, I don't envy you at times. It must be emotionally as well quite difficult.
Oh, it's always it's not actually emotional. I think you cut yourself off a little bit from it.
Right.
But you do feel for the drivers when it does go wrong. When something happens. As I said, mainly with the juniors.
Yeah. Because
obviously, the junior drivers are not capable of doing half the things that are the things that are on the card.
Yeah.
Obviously, the younger they are, the less input they get on it. The older the driver's slightly different, and when you get into the seniors, then that's a different ball game, because there are seniors drivers that are quite capable of doing whatever they wanted to do.
Absolutely, yeah, because they teach them at the junior level to start getting involved, don't they? So by the seniors they are. Well, okay, so it's emotionally challenging. How many times are you having to re-swat up on the new rules and things like that? Is it a frequent amount of workload for you on that front as well?
Every year you're having to make sure that there's things, that the new regulations are obviously you know what they are. It's quite helpful obviously with RGMMC, because obviously Roland, James and myself, we normally sit down at the end of the year and we're talking about things, and so obviously the knowledge is straight away there if we're going to do something.
Yeah.
When you're looking at then the general regulations, which runs to the CIK book, obviously you do have to keep swatting up on that every year, because if there's something new that comes out. But generally it's always in your mind, and even when you have an issue that you have to look at, you still need to just make sure 101% that you're correct, because if you don't, you could end up saying something's wrong, putting the wrong wording down, and then when it does go to the stewards, somebody can then appeal it on a silly mistake that you've made. So you're trying to really dot I's and cross T's all the time.
Well, the big thing that I can tell from speaking to you is that clearly the passion's still there. The interest isn't waning, so we're going to see you here for a good few years as chief scrutineer. Is that a fair thing to say?
I hope so.
Yeah, good. That's what I like to see. We don't want to lose the passion there, the belief, the controlling element of it. Thank you very much for taking the time to interview us. Very interesting to hear, and thank you for all of your work.
Thank you.
So there we go, Paul Klaassen, chief scrutineer.